Welcome to Morning Mojo for Friday, February 13th, 2016. I'm Brad Hutchings, creator of Mmojo and your host. Today we're going to install Mmojo Server on Windows 11. Here's what you'll be able to do. It's really cool. Let's start Mmojo Server. I'll come to my taskbar, find its icon, start it up. Let's also start Google Chrome. I'll start it up as well. Let's arrange the windows. Connect to Mmojo Server in your web browser. Let's ask it something. Even though it's a completion style interface, you can use it kind of like chat if you like. Let's use a bookmark. You might remember this one from last time. It's working away here. I'm just going to stop it. We've got enough of a... Well, we have one recipe that's pretty good. It was going to go on and give us some more. Mmojo Server is a private local large language model, or LLM. It has a humane completion-style user interface. A familiar chat-style user interface is also available. Mmojo Server doesn't save your prompts or queues. It doesn't save its answers or completions. It doesn't share any of those with the cloud. You can start it quickly when you need it and turn it off when you don't. If you're an AI application developer, I know most of you aren't. But if you are, it has an OpenAI compatible API so you can develop your product on your laptop without burning any cloud tokens. Let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is open a terminal. I click the terminal icon in my taskbar. Let's bring that into the view here. Second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open a web browser. I'm going to arrange them on my screen, and we're ready to go. Let's go to the Mmojo Server repository on GitHub. Let's navigate to deploy, 200 Windows WSL, and the README file. This will tell you about this section. If you need help walking through this, you can hire me to help you walk through this, and I'll give you all sorts of tidbits on using local and private LLMs, which might be helpful to you. Charge $100 for the service. It takes about an hour. Deploy Mmojo Server. Let's go to the prerequisites first. So our prerequisites say we need an x86 or Arch64, often called ARM CPU. Those are the two variants of Windows CPUs that are available now. You need 16 gigabytes of RAM. Mmojo Server needs plenty of RAM to run, let's say, an 8 billion parameter model. 24 gigabytes or more would help you run other tasks comfortably while running an 8 billion parameter model. Windows 10, 11 Home and Pro both support WSL. You may have to enable features in your BIOS or within Windows to enable WSL. As I get more information on that, I'll put that in the guide. I recommend you have a second fast disk for WSL instant storage rather than your startup disk. Lots of people configure their laptops this way now. Modern NVIDIA GPU with at least 4 gigs of VRAM would be very, very helpful. Mmojo Server running in WSL can use NVIDIA GPUs. It can't use other GPUs, and that's due to WSL, not to Mmojo Server. If you have familiarity with WSL because you're a developer, this can help you out a little bit. And if you have a file share on your network that you can use as what I call a Mmojo share, that'll be a good place when you download models to automatically store them there so that you won't have to download them from Hugging Face again. That can take quite a while. Let's proceed. We're going to prepare WSL. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to delete an existing Mmojo Server WSL instance. Well, you probably don't have one of these, but If you want to reinstall it or whatever else, you'll have one. Or if you want to just start over because you goofed up, that happens too. I goof up all the time. I try not to, but it happens. Here's what we're going to do. We got a terminal open, and you can see I've got a PowerShell prompt. I'm going to list my WSL instances. You'll notice I have 3 of them: Mmojo Server Build, OpenClaw, and Mmojo Server. We're going to replace the Mmojo Server one. By the way, when I do this, I click the copy button, I come over to the terminal, and I right-click in that paste. Alright, it also says that I should remove this pinned Mmojo Server from my taskbar. So let me bring up the taskbar. Let me come over here. I'm going to unpin it from the taskbar. Alright, we took care of that. Next, we're going to create a new Mmojo Server WSL instance. This takes a moment. I'm not going to speed it up, we're just going to do it. I was telling my dog to go sit because she's getting a little frisky as I record this. This is real time. I'm not going to speed this up in post. And it is almost done. Alright, now that it's installed, it will launch. And we need to create a default user account. It uses my user account name from Windows as a suggestion. I'm going to back up over that. I'll paste in Linux. For the password, I like admin123 bang. It does not have to be a secure password. But if you like to secure your password, you're totally welcome to. First thing we need to do is we need to disable interop and auto mount to lock this WSL instance down. So I'm going to append a section. It's going to ask for my password. I have these interspersed here for if you need them in the instructions. And let's just check our work. Alright, that's the etc WSL conf file. That looks good. Let's remove the sudo timeout here because otherwise we're going to type in our sudo password a lot. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to come down below this first defaults, the third defaults. By the way, I use my arrow keys to do that. I right click to paste, and I'm going to hit Control X, Y, and Enter to save my changes. Next, I'm going to customize my shell prompt. I'll show you why. Because now it tells me that this WSL instance is Mmojo Server. If you decide to install OpenClaw or other WSL instances, this can be a useful trick. Let's run apt update and upgrade. I will speed this up in post-production. And it's done. Let's now power off our WSL instance. So I'm going to hit sudo power off. After a second, my PowerShell prompt will appear. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move the WSL virtual disk from our startup disk over to that secondary disk I told you about. D:, I call it. So I'll make a directory for the WSL hard disk file. Then I'm going to wait for a minute. And let me tell you why I have to wait. It's because if I paste this next command, which does the move, I'm going to get an error which says error sharing violation. So I'm going to turn off my camera and speed this up in post. Alright, I think it's probably ready. Yes, it is. And it says the operation completed successfully. That did not take long. Let's scroll down. We're going to reconnect to the Mmojo Server WSL instance. So I'll issue this command. And a few moments later, we're reconnected. You can see our prompt says Mmojo Server. Let's run a simple sudo command so we can give it the password and not run into this later. Then we're going to create this directory called mmscripts. It holds a bunch of scripts that we're going to use. And then we're going to clone the Mmojo Server repository. This has a bunch of scripts that we're going to use. And it's finished. Now, if you were me, you can switch to your work in progress branch and work on the cutting edge, but you're not me, so you're not going to do that. We need to pin Mmojo Server to the taskbar down here. I'm going to click the Start icon on my taskbar, which you can see the Start menu. I'm going to type Mmojo Server. I found it here. I'm going to right-click it. I'm going to pin it to the taskbar. And you can see that it appeared on the taskbar here. I like to move mine to the left of OpenClaw because that's how I like to have it. So that's what I did. Let me turn the taskbar off. All right, and it says great job. I'm going to leave this terminal open and we're going to go to mount our Mmojo share. So in this step, we have a Mmojo share. I've set it up as just a simple SMB file share somewhere on my network. Actually, it happens to be on my laptop that I'm actually running this whole operation on. But I'll show you how that works. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a mount point for the share in our WSL environment. Install some software, and then a couple seconds later, it's all done. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to edit the mount script, and there's a couple of things you have to tell it here. You have to mouse arrow down, or down arrow down to here, the host. My host is called 17. Why is that? Because it's a Dell 17-inch XPS laptop, and I name all my laptop hosts after the screen size because I'm weird that way. You probably have a different name for your computer, and you might even be running your Mmojo share on another computer. Remember, this Mmojo share thing, it is optional. You don't have to do it, but it will save us a lot of time downloading models and where to store them. The user is the user that gets me onto the SMB share. Mine is called Hyper-V. Yours will probably be different. And the share, mine is called Mmojo. You might have a different name for the share that you're using. When you have that set up, you'll hit Control X, Y, and return or enter to save. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to mount the Mmojo share. So I'm going to paste this command in here. It asked me for the password for Hyper-V at 17. And my password there, believe it or not, is admin123 bang. When I'm done, it's gonna, if it's successful, it's gonna list the contents of that directory. You can see I've got a whole bunch of stuff in there. Let's download models. So first thing I need to do is create the models directory. I'm going to paste this command. We have a couple of optional things here to add some cool models. Google Gemma E2B and E4B are a little more advanced than the Google models that are built in. We've got some IBM Granite models if you need to do thinking or tool calling. They're pretty good at that. I'm not going to click either of those. I am going to click Download Models. And this is going to take a minute, so I'm going to speed it up in post without my camera. All right, we're done with that. We go on to downloading Mmojo Server. So in this step, we're going to download Mmojo Server. If you want to build it, I have some instructions to build it. We're not going to do that in this. But building it would be a native build for your particular Windows machine. First, let's install GPU support. This is going to take a minute, so I'm going to speed it up in post. All right, that took about 6 minutes. I want to draw your attention to something here, which is at the end of this, it says Note, install CUDA and Vulkan tools finished. And that's so you can look up if you went away, got a cup of coffee or something, like, okay, where am I? What did I do? Oh, okay, that install CUDA and Vulkan tools finished. Now I know where I am. There's things like that interspersed in the instructions to help you out. We need to tell this computer where we're going to download Mmojo Server from. So I'm going to copy this. It will figure out if you're running on x86 or ARM, and it'll pick the right URL. We start out with what's called a performant build. And performant build should run on, at least on x86, on fairly recent CPUs. On the ARM side, it's a little sketchy. But if you run into problems, you'll just do this again. This step about setting the Mmojo Server download URL and downloading Mmojo Server from Hugging Face. And you'll see this takes almost no time. I'm not going to speed that up in post. It's almost done. All right, and this shows us our directory for Mmojo Server where this is stored. And you can see it's got all the things. Let's test Mmojo Server. First thing we need to do is choose a model from one of the ones we downloaded. So let me paste this command and run it. It'll ask me which model I want to run. We're going to pick Google Gemma 4B Instruct. So I type 3 and enter. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to start Mmojo Server. So you can see that it's doing a lot of work. It's getting ready to do stuff. Now we're going to scroll down here and I'm going to middle click on Mmojo Complete. And that's going to open this in this window. If you wonder what model we're running, you can click the settings button. You see it says Google Gemma 3 4B. You might see this is different from the first video. It was just called Mmojo Complete before. And I changed the title of this window to Mmojo Complete is private to remind you that you're in a private LLM. So I take your feedback very seriously. There was some feedback about that issue from the first video, so I take it seriously and I take care of it for you. Let's test this out. We can test it with our potato pancakes recipe again, and you can see that it's engaged in making us potato pancakes. It does like to output with Markdown. I'm going to do something about that in a future release as well. Alright, it's almost done with the instructions here. Heat the oil, cook the pancakes, fry, golden brown, drain. And now there's a more flavorful version. I'm going to stop it there. I just hit enter to stop it. And we are done with that. Well, at least it's running. Let's stop Mmojo Server. I'm going to come back to the terminal. I'm going to hit Control-C. You may have to hit it twice to get it to stop, but now it's stopped. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to set this thing to auto start. I'll show you what's cool about this. We can run this little command, and then when we start Mmojo Server with its icon in the taskbar, it'll just start it up for us, and it'll leave it running until we close that window. So let me hide that. I'll paste that command in. That's done. Now it says to close my Mmojo Server WSL window. So I will just hit, you know what, I can just close it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to close it. Okay, I'm going to wait for a few seconds here for this thing to power down so it's all done. I'm going to come back to the taskbar. I will open Mmojo Server. I will arrange the windows, and I'll come back to my auto start thing. See, it says that it's running. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to reload this page, and you can see that we have Mmojo Server running. When I am done with Mmojo Server, did I bookmark Mmojo complete? I didn't do that. You can go do that. When I'm done with Mmojo Server, I can power it off. And the window will disappear. There's one more thing that we can do is we might want to change the model. So let me show you how to change the model. The way you change the model is we'll launch Mmojo Server again. My sequencing is a little out here. I probably should not have turned that off. I will arrange both windows. I need to stop Mmojo Server. So it says it's stopping it, it's stopped. Now I can choose a model. In this case, I'm going to choose Gemma 1B. I'm going to start Mmojo Server again. Now this time when I start Mmojo Server, it started in the background, which is better. I'm almost done. There's one last step that we can do, and that is to set up port forwarding for Mmojo Server. So Mmojo Server right now will work with connections from my laptop. It won't work for connections from outside on the network. If I want to do that, I have to set up port forwarding. I have instructions here to set it up using Nginx. I'm not going to go through those instructions this time. So anyways, Brad Hutchings. I showed you how to install Mmojo Server on the second Mmorning Mojo. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.